Okay, we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from the East Coast. Hello, good morning. If you are on the West Coast, I think it's still morning there, just barely. Welcome to today's Visionary Chats. We have turned it into a LinkedIn Live today. This is my first LinkedIn Live. Marna's a vet, so I'm really excited to try this out. I'm glad you're doing it with me, Marna. So this is super exciting.
Yeah. Happy to be here together. Happy to warm up the LinkedIn Live stage. It's great to be together and just create some conversation that'll hopefully help a bunch of people.
Awesome, cool. All right, I think there was a delay getting us on LinkedIn Live, but we are now officially live. So hello, everybody. Visionary Chats has come to LinkedIn Live. I'm Ashley. I'm so happy you're here. While people are trickling in, whether you're watching this live or on replay, please drop #live, #replay. If you're watching it later, let us know where you're tuning in from. This is super exciting for me, for us to chat about. So awesome. Cool. All right. So I'm thrilled to announce or introduce, I should say, our guest today, Marna Schwartz. So Marna is an executive wellness coach who specializes in helping high-performing founders, managers, and teams avoid burnout and build sustainable success. Her work includes speaking at major events like the Grace Hopper Celebration, organizations like Managers International, Tech Ladies, International Communal Studies Association, and she has worked with people at companies like Google, Meta, other top Silicon Valley companies. Marna doesn't only bring expertise. She brings heart and humor to everything she does. And I'm so happy she could join us today. Fun fact, Marna and I met at a tech walk here in New York City. I was co-hosting it and we were getting our steps in and feeling super creative as I do when I move around. And we got talking about what she does and what I was doing with just the founder community, the startup community, and we figured that this was great to collaborate on. So Marna, thank you for being here with me today.
Yay, thank you. Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me. And I just really respect and appreciate the stand that you're taking for the founder, funder, and fractional community to up-level in their way of being so that they can really show up for what's possible in the world without depleting themselves. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so important. It doesn't get talked about enough, I feel. I think that there's a lot of hustle culture conversation. And yes, I want to bring light in terms of how we can do this sustainably.
Yay.
Before I ask you the first question, just a quick heads up to everyone listening and watching that we have an upcoming in-person event, which Marna will also be there as well, called the Visionaries Table Founder Burnout Prevention. It's happening Thursday, May 15th from 9:30 to 12 at Fabric, which is located in Tribeca. And we're going to talk about this topic deeper, but it's not just talking about it, it's workshopping through it. It's thinking about, okay, well, I know where I am in my journey to either preventing burnout or it's here, I'm experiencing it. What can I do? What are some tactical things that I can put in place? And it's not just chatting with me or Marna, but it's also chatting with your peers too. So it's going to be a great time. These events are so much fun.
Yes. And that's going to be in New York City. And I'm so excited to share that right now my feet are in Albany, New York. And I'm seeing some people commenting in. We've got people from all over the place. It's so exciting. I'm seeing Brianna, sorry. Either way, hi, nice to see you. Listening in from Nashville, Tennessee. You're so welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. She says, thanks for having us. Yeah. I'm seeing someone from Atlanta, Georgia, Kate from Berkeley, California, Keisha from Texas. She says, busy does not equal productive. About that hustle culture comment. Absolutely.
Men. And I could go on for that a really long time in terms of how we measure productivity. And maybe it'll come up in this conversation, but let's dive right into it. Okay, so I want people to get to know you, Marna. I know when we were chatting, as we were preparing for this, it was really interesting and cool to just hear your story. So, can you share with everyone your personal experience with burnout? And in addition to that, you work with a lot of founders, a lot of leaders. What are some common themes that you've seen among that group that you work with when it comes to burnout?
Great questions, Ashley. Thank you. So I first got interested in the topic of burnout by surprise, suffering severe burnout myself. Only I didn't have the word for it at the time. I didn't have the language. I didn't have the understanding of what was happening. All I knew was I felt like a shell of myself, like the outside was there, but the inside was gone. I was like a walking zombie, just going through the motions of life, but it was really costing my health and happiness. And I was in a place in my life where I was, a high achiever. I was doing my best, but it cost me everything. I had body pain, IBS. I lost my capacity for joy, and a lot of my clients relate with this. Things that normally brought me joy, I just didn't feel like doing. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have any desire. So I really had to cultivate a new relationship with myself and my well-being. And that included tools that like yoga and health coaching. And I loved it so much that I became a yoga teacher and a health coach. Um, I started my business in San Francisco in a one-room live workspace in Soma, 9th and Folsom, if you're familiar. And I slowly and gradually grew my business. I ended up moving down to Silicon Valley because I kept getting more work down there because, surprise, they were burnt out as well. And I guess I was able to, increase my my trustworthiness, my reputation over time, so that it ended up CEOs, executives, heads of department at Stanford were hiring me to come and work with them one-on-one, as well as with their teams, to reduce stress, prevent burnout, and increase well-being, because they realized that that was really the way to go. Because the truth is, if you're taking really good care of yourself and your nervous system and your personal relationships, you're better positioned to make effective decisions in order to meet your short and your long-term goals. And I think that's what I see that's a really dangerous trend in the founder community, is they have this dream, right? They have this desire, they have this thing like, yeah, this is gonna work and be amazing for myself and the world and all these different things. And they commit to it in a context that really celebrates, unfortunately, martyrdom. Right? Like, oh, if you're exhausted, you're doing it right. It means you really care and you're really, and they see it kind of as a form of hazing or a rite of passage. But the truth
Yes.
is, it leads to mistakes, right? Decisions where you go back and you're like, oh, why did I even do that? Oh, friend, because you were exhausted.
Yeah, it leads to mistakes. It leads to um, the wrong decisions. I feel like that's just putting it plainly. Sometimes it leads to making decisions that you would not have made if you did prioritize yourself. So
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And that's mistakes in the space of the business and also in your personal life,
Very
right?
true.
Like sacrificing everything. And then you come back around to your life and you're like, why am I alone? And it's like, well, you abandoned your relationships.
Yeah, it impacts everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we just started talking about this, but I want to dig deeper. So the first part of our conversation is really going to be diving into the basics. So I would love to know from you, what is founder burnout, and why do you feel like it's such a pervasive issue in this startup ecosystem?
Great question. So founder burnout is like most burnout, when it's not even about caring too much or doing too much. It's like overextending in ways that leave you depleted, leave you not able to show up for more. There are ways of building your capacity as an individual, as a founder, and so on. And so many people skip that step and go straight to just, I'm going to do a lot. And also a lot of founders get into this position where they're like a bottleneck, right, for their company or their movement or whatever it is they're up to. Everything has to go through them.
Yeah.
And so that actually slows down the process of creation, right? Delegation is an art and a skill, and also building team around you. And knowing who to trust with what, right? Don't go to the bread store for milk. And so the founder burnout that I've seen is like people who have these dreams, but not the right, supportive kind of context to feel good consistently while accomplishing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think that makes a ton of sense, honestly. And I know we talked about this when we were chatting through what to talk about with everyone today, but it's so important to note too that it just shows up in so many different ways, right?
Yeah. And I'd love
Sometimes,
to hear from the people who are watching either the live or the replay. Have you dealt with burnout, or have you seen people deal with burnout? Go ahead and let us know in the comments, in the chat. What does burnout look like for you, or has it looked like for other people around you? And really, I'd love for this to be a full conversation, and we're going to come back and check the comments. So even if you're watching the replay, we'd love to hear from you.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, burnout just looks, while that's coming in, burnout just looks so different depending on the individual. I know for me, when I was burnt out, I would go into work and I would stare at the screen for a couple of hours before I could even get my brain working. Kate said, I started my whole company to prevent it. I love that, Kate. Tell us more about your company and what you're doing and the good work you're doing, because this really is so important.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, while those responses are coming in, I feel like a burnout, along with a lot of things, is becoming maybe kind of a buzzword in the sense that I think examples are really helpful in this situation to know what burnout can look like. And we just talked about the fact, right, that there is a ton of different ways that this could look like. But is there some fundamental early signs, depending on how it manifests for people, that founders miss or ignore or just dismiss altogether?
Yeah, I think one early warning sign that a lot of people miss is irritability. Just like everything, like everything rubs you the wrong way, right? Like the people around you can't say anything right. Like nothing is going right. Like it's like a nerve being exposed, and like everything touches it, and it just right. There's so irritability, frequent feelings of disgust, chronically feeling behind, right? Like if you're doing everything from an energy of trying to catch up, right? Because there's all these, deadlines and milestones and this and that. And then you create it with this context of like, you're already failing. So when you're trying to play catch up from already failing all the time, that's moving in the wrong direction. A lot of people get trouble if you can't just relax and be. Right. A lot of people have trouble with, I turn off the computer, but I still can't stop thinking about it. That's a sign. Trouble with digestion is a sign. A lot of people have trouble with IBS or, constipation, diarrhea, things like just not working right, like not eating right. I had one client who came to me. She said she was considering buying stock in Pepto-Bismol because she needed it all the time. And so when things are literally kind of falling apart, in the systems that are keeping you alive, that's a sign, that's a problem. Relationship suffering, friendship suffering, rashes. A lot of people don't realize that that can be a sign of overstress or burnout. Um, your body tells you things, and it could show up in lots of different ways, and that's why it's a little bit tricky, right? It's a little pernicious. It shows up differently for everybody, but there are trends. And so the important thing is to do some self-reflection and start to recognize, well, what are my trends? What are my tells? For me, I know that, if I feel like a zombie, that's my system trying to tell me something. And it's not necessarily about doing less work. It's about doing it in a different way.
I agree. It is doing it in a different way. Self-reflection, though, is really important. I think it's important for everything we do. I always seek to work with founders who are really self-reflective, because in that process, I feel like they in terms of just decision making, they tend to be better decision makers because they're not bringing something that's a personal issue onto their team. And here it's really important too, because the signs are so specific. I'll say that one thing that is consistent for me, and someone else brought it up last week, is skipping my doctor's appointments. I don't know what it is. Someone else said it last week when I was chatting with them. For whatever reason, the doctor's appointments seem to be the first thing to go when you're feeling overwhelmed. You automatically don't, I don't know, schedule your annuals or something. But it was funny to me that came up last week outside of myself.
Yeah. Don't take your well-being for granted. It's not a given. And it's important to make the time and the space for consistent self-care. Absolutely.
Awesome. And Kate said for her, her telltale sign was the hypervigilance. It made her very jumpy and irritable. I can relate to that.
Yeah, me too, Kate. Thanks for sharing.
And Brianna said 100% have suffered from burnout, success at the expense of my relationship with my kids, marriage, friends. When I finally quit, I can see how I got caught up in a terrible negative loop. Overweight, not taking care of myself and my body. Yeah, I plus one. I totally understand. And keep sharing with us. Thank you if you're tuning in right now. Thank you for being here. Marna and I are having a conversation about burnout, specifically in the startup community. So keep sharing your experiences with us. We want to read them, know about them, and talk about it. Awesome. Okay. I want to move the conversation forward. And in preparation for this, I was seeing what research is there on burnout specifically for this population of individuals. And entrepreneur.com, which is sister to the Entrepreneur magazine, just wrote an article in March about this. It's almost like they knew we were having this live. And I will share it with everyone in the comments, but I want to talk about what they found. So a 2024 survey showed that 53% of founders reported experiencing burnout, and they tied it to a couple of key patterns. So the first one is treating every decision like a crisis. Instead of distinguishing between high stakes and reversible decisions, many founders treat everything like an emergency, leading to decision fatigue and exhaustion. I want us to remember that, because I think it's easy to oversimplify, but I think there's much more at play systemically as to why that happens. The second one was underpaying themselves. 9% of founders took no salary at all in 2024, which creates financial pressure and mental strain over time. The third thing they identified was building companies that are overly dependent on the founder. We were just talking about this. Without scalable systems, founders become bottlenecks, handling every decision and touch point themselves. And then the last point, which to me ties into the very first point about treating every decision like a crisis is choosing the wrong investors. Founders who partner with investors focused only on short-term wins often feel relentless pressure, and that accelerates burnout. Marna, what are you thinking about this article?
Yeah, I'm appreciating that there was an article. I'm appreciating that it's top of mind for people and coming into, more popular culture more frequently, being addressed, creating opportunities for sharing tools and conversations, insights. Yeah, the human system was not designed to be in a constant crisis, right? The human system was designed to be primarily in a state of peaceful relaxation, like maybe doing of things, but more in like a relaxed or everyday way, not like a, oh my God, something is wrong, the world is on fire kind of way. When you create that kind of stress and tension for yourself, it's setting yourself up for a burnout, for um, exhaustion, right? Like you're trying to do everything in a way that like we were talking about, where like, oh, everything is wrong, and I'm trying to play catch up from the outset, is a problem. And then living in that place is just completely depleting. Did you know that being stressed out actually um, can hurt the body over time and actually diminish brain function?
I
Um, yeah, a lot of people don't realize, like in trying to do the thing you're trying to do so hard, you're actually making it less likely to be successful in doing the thing that you're committed to doing. Isn't that a catch?
it feels like it is, but it also really isn't at the same time. But it does require us to really override conditioning, societal
Yeah.
conditioning, expectations. So yes, it's
Yeah.
very interesting, but also makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the article makes sense. Choosing the wrong investors, it's like, choosing your the people that you're beholden to. And if they have an energy of like, everything's wrong, we gotta go, da, 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 of course that's gonna infiltrate the doing and the creation of what's happening.
Of
So if
course.
you want to be discerning and not put yourself in that kind of toxic culture place, choose people to work with, including investors who are on the same level as you around prioritizing the long game.
Yes, and I'm gonna talk about that later. But there are investors out there who definitely do prioritize the long game. I know I was excited to begin to meet those folks. It doesn't feel like, or at least from my perspective, again, to everyone listening and watching later, I am 2 years into my startup world journey, right? So I've been to a lot of networking events. I've been traveling across the US just to see how the other parts of the ecosystem work. And I don't necessarily hear a ton of investors talking about the, how well-being also plays a part in businesses doing well. So yeah, if you're an investor listening to this, or maybe even someone who wants to become an investor, right? This is something I believe should really be at the top of your list to also consider as you're navigating these waters. Kate, going back to the comments, Kate said this issue costs the globe 8.9 trillion in lost productivity. Ooh, I have not examined this issue from a loss of productivity stance, but your comment now makes me want to, which makes a ton of sense. Kate also said investors who are not purpose-based and pushing for revenue versus pushing for engaged employees and customer experiences, which drive revenue. It's so true. It's all interconnected, which I hope is something that you all take away from this conversation. But it's definitely something that I want to push more. Is it doesn't really make sense to look at things in isolation. I don't necessarily believe that that's how you get to the root cause of things. Awesome. Okay. And then before we move on, Marna, there was actually something, I feel like you said it to me when we were chatting a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
That the goal is to always have your stress level at a 4 on a given day. Can you talk more about that? Because I have quoted it to multiple people over the last 2 weeks and they loved hearing it, but also it's become more of a guiding light for me in terms of how I start my day, right? It's like I wake up, I open my eyes, thank God because this is the day the Lord has made. And then I tell myself, we are going to aim to keep our stress level low. So just please talk a little more about it.
Love that. So yeah, and this goes along with the awareness that stress reduces brain function, reduces brain, like frontal cortex, so then in the brain, the frontal cortex, the problem solving part of the brain, actually reduces in size with chronic stress over time. And then the amygdala, the fear-based part of the brain, can increase in size. And so if you're wanting to create kind of a fear body and a fear system and a uh, your humanness to be able to survive and thrive in a world of stress, right? Then be as stressed out as you want. But other things like your digestion are going to go out the window, which is no bueno. And so one of the things that I've introduced with my clients and when I give workshops at, a company and so forth, one of the tools I give them is I say, okay, consider for yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your stress level right now? Right. And usually because they're in a talk and they're kind of like learning stuff, it's like lower than usual or whatever. But consider just on an everyday level, like, where is your stress? And a lot of people are like, oh my God, it's like an 8 or a 9. And like, so the problem with that is if your stress level, if your day-to-day stress level is already at like a 7, 8, or 9, if something happens that's unexpected, which let's face it, it's common, especially in the world of founder and startups and doing things that haven't been done before, where is your stress level going to go from there? Right? It's going to spike and you're going to hit like an 11 and you're going to, right? Like the things that need to be faced with a calm and conscious, discerning state of being are you're not able to face them that way, right? If you've been living at an 8, you pop to an 11. Yes, I understand that's past 10.
But sometimes
like that's how a lot of people feel. Like, oh my God, like the lid has just come off. And the worst part is it happens a lot, right? Or at least enough to really damage your human system, right? That's a way too much wear and tear for your human system, as well as the organizational system that you're trying to create for your business. So if you can go about your day aware of your stress level and sometimes this means accountability, logging it, at least for yourself. Maybe if you've got a coach or someone that you're working with, like myself, just creating an accountability system where you create an awareness and a consistency. So it becomes second nature. It's not one more thing to do. It becomes second nature as a way to protect yourself and increase your long-term success. To notice, where am I right now? How do I keep it lower? And that includes like pre-gaming life. Like, what do you have to do for yourself to reduce your stress level? One of my clients put it really well. She said, you gave me the short-term stress solutions to help reduce it in the moment, but you also gave me long-term stress solutions to make it lower overall. So try to keep it below a 4. It'll be better for yourself. It'll be better for your business. It'll be better for all the people around you and your long-term health.
Oh, I love it. Something about that quantifying it for me was super, super helpful. Okay, so shifting to the comments, Brianna mentioned there's a recent report that quantified the cost of burnout at $21,000 per employee per year. That's a lot. What are we doing here? Brianna, if you can drop that link, I would love to see that report. If you have it on you, that would be phenomenal. Because I'm so glad someone's putting numbers to it. Kate mentioned stress, such a good point. Chronic stress equals out of office time, mistakes, slow work, rework, unable to make decisions, no way to manage conflicting priorities, etc., all impact our burnout. It's so true. There was a time in my life where I was working 70, 80 hours a week when I was in accounting. And it was not fun. But one thing that I really appreciated about my boss at the time is he was very much so a law of diminishing returns person. So it truly is that, like, after a certain point, like if you don't go to sleep and take care of yourself, you're not actually getting further on things. So the rework is really important. This also happened to me last week when I knew I should have just shut the laptop on something, and I was trying to get ahead on sending automated emails for an event, and I got everything scheduled, but then one of the emails went out saying, "Hello, first name." So that's always fun when that happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think one word that gets thrown around a lot is absenteeism. But some
Mm,
people haven't heard the word yet, presenteeism, when someone is present and doing the thing, but they're not actually being effective in what they're doing.
absolutely. Okay, so we're going to spend the last half of our conversation talking about prevention strategies, which I feel like we have been peppering in, but I want to hone in on some succinct ways that people can prevent burnout. And then, if you are currently experiencing burnout, number one, I'm really sorry. As someone who's experienced burnout twice, it's not fun. I don't say I experienced burnout twice as any badge of honor. It's just kind of a fact. But if you are currently experiencing burnout, I think it's important to talk through what are some of the things that people should focus when they're there in order to be able to begin recovery.
Mhm.
So coming to the prevention strategies, again, Marna, we've been sprinkling them through the last half hour, but what do you think? What changes do you think founders can make within their businesses, but also within their personal lives, to avoid becoming the bottleneck and burning out?
Great question. So I think that recognizing that to prioritize your well-being is a business strategy,
Yep.
is a success strategy. And doing that, even though it might seem like life and the culture around you is calling for like martyrdom and exhaustion, and the more exhausted you are, the better your company will do. But it really doesn't work that way, and it doesn't define how far you're going to go as a company, right? You're going to get further faster if you're able to think better. And like I said, stress has a serious impact on brain function as well as like bodily function. You don't always think about it this way, but the brain is an organ, right? The brain is an organ like the heart or the lungs, and the stronger your system is, the more your brain can perform better and more consistently. It's also really important to hire the right amount of people, right? And who are able to do the right things and allow them to learn, right? Don't just do things because you think, oh, I'm the only one who can do it well or get it right. Develop your personal boundaries and rituals to leave work at work and give yourself the time and experience for joy and human connection, because that's what really nourishes the nervous system, right? If you're sitting on a beach or somewhere beautiful and you're stressed out about work, it's not going to help or do anything. A lot of people think, oh, I can just go on vacation and that'll restore everything. It's like, well, no, because if the systems that are burning you out are the same systems that you're coming back to, that doesn't go very well. So first of all, you might not get the rest or restoration or rejuvenation that you need. And you're also setting the culture, right, for your company around how they prioritize wellness or not. So if you want your team to perform better, prioritizing your wellness and how you're showing up can really give them the permission and the sort of culture boost to do that also. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Because there are things that, of course, are not written in your onboarding contract or just in any sort of formal handbook or way of working, but culturally people pick up on the unsaid, right? So if you see the founder or the leader continuously working super long days and nights and sacrificing weekends, well, everybody else is going to feel like they also have to do that. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think that's really important. I always hate when I have thoughts and then they escape me, and that's exactly what just happened. It's
It'll come
exactly
back if
what
it's
just
meant to.
happened. Exactly. Brianna, thank you so much for sharing the study. I am looking forward to digging into that, and I hope
Me
everyone
too.
else is here too. And then I believe your name is Maya. She concurred with what you had to say, so that resonated. Awesome. Well, guys, keep typing in the chat to us. It's a lot more exciting when it's interactive. So if there's anything that you're resonating with here or any questions you have of something that we didn't touch on, do not be afraid. Drop it in the comments. It's super important. One, I will say one thing that I do from like a preventative strategy, and again, this goes back to really knowing yourself or being very self-reflective, is I will say something about the winter this time where this, the seasonal depression kind of hit a little harder for whatever reason. And one thing that truly saved me was the infrared sauna, specifically with red light. And I just felt amazing every time I got out of the sauna. So that's something that I try to do a couple times a week. Truly, it relaxes me. I love the way I feel after. Um, I'm sure people can argue whether the science is there or not, but I'm just kind of going off of my body and how I feel. And that's has been really helpful. In addition to workouts in the morning, I'm a morning workout person. And so I try to get workouts in the morning 3 to 4 times a week where I'm lifting, I'm doing an exercise that I really enjoy. So that has been helpful just in terms of how I show up for myself, family and friends, clients I work with. So those are just some of the very small things I do. The thought came back. But what I was going to say is, I love when that happens. What I was also going to mention is I have really just come to terms with the way I work. So I'm a sprint girl. Like I can do early mornings, late nights for a sprint. And for me, it's maybe like 2 to 3 weeks. And then after that 2 to 3 weeks, I need an additional 2 to 3 weeks where I'm kind of clocking in at more normal hours. And so it's not that you never work late or you never get up early, but it's just that cannot be the norm.
Yeah. Absolutely. There can't be fires all the time.
No. And I've worked in environments like that, and it's not fun.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to shift into the last part. Again, guys, keep the questions in the comments coming. Absolutely loving them. But now we're going to focus on the recovery from burnout. So for the founders and the business leaders that are listening to this or will be listening to this, if they are experiencing burnout today, Monday, April 28th, or whenever they're listening to this, what is the first thing that they should do to start recovering?
Such a good question. I think the first thing that they should do is to recognize if they're having a thought like, am I possibly burned out? To take it seriously.
Yep.
To go from there to, if I'm wondering, then the answer is probably to some degree yes. And to do something about it. right? To care enough and take it seriously enough to do something about it. And like we've been talking about, right? In my training as a health coach, one of the things that we talked about was bioindividuality, right?
Hmm.
Every human body is different. So for you, infrared sauna worked great. For somebody else, that's not their solution, right?
Yeah.
So just like, it's important for people to develop and understand what are their burnout prevention strategies, what are the consistent things that they do in order to help prevent burnout. It's also good to develop, like, what are my burnout recovery strategies if needed? And you can look at what other people do. You can, consider it. I think important things include rest, right? I think humans shouldn't work more than 80% of their capacity in general, right?
Hmm.
Because if you're working at 100% capacity all the time, then just like we talked about before, if a crisis or something unusual happens, you have very little bump room, right? If
Right.
you're already 100%, something weird happens, you can't give 110%, or if you try to, your system will suffer. So if you keep it low, right, like day to day, 80% is like sort of a high of what you can give of your work time. Uh, then when you're suffering or you're in burnout, reduce it even more, right? Start padding your margins a little bit more. Give yourself time to actually rest, to try different things, to see what works for you. When I'm working with clients, I give them a list of things that could possibly work, and we discover and establish from there, like, oh, what are their things? And then we start padding their everyday, sort of routines and habits and so on with the things that will help keep them out of burnout, which sometimes are like little parts of the things that also help them recover. But I think one important thing across the board is always rest and doing less until you feel better. Sometimes it means doing nothing for a little while, and people hate that. They're like, "What do you mean do nothing?" It's like, really just take yourself off the map, leave your cell phone, give yourself time to do nothing, because the human system does something interesting. When it gets bored, it thinks in a different way and it does something different. And it's actually an important part of who we are and how we do, but also just give the opportunity for the nervous system to rest and reset for a while. So that's one strong thing for recovery. And then let me see what else I wanted to say about recovery. Mm, um, so increase your burnout literacy so you're able to talk about it more, right? So you want to boost your awareness, your literacy, and then partner with people to create the truth that it's an important thing to maintain that awareness of, to be in a communication and relationship with. And those people partners might be your co-founders, they might be experts or coaches like myself and like Ashley, it might even be your team, right? If you're instilling a, a, the burnout prevention awareness into your team, how do you have conversations about it? So awareness, action and communication, and then partnership. So that helps to create a context, implement strategies that make sense. And of course, it's always um, situation specific. So mileage varies. Be open to what you need as an individual.
Yes, and I have a couple of comments, but I wanted to shift to we'll revisit my comments. Marcella asks, is burnout the same as PTSD? It's a very interesting question because I think there was a point in my burnout journey where some of it felt like PTSD. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Mm, I think it can be related for
Related. Okay.
sure. And it's sort of, those of us who are in systems design can be familiar with the term of a wicked problem, right? And
Mm.
it's like a little bit like a knot where things are all kind of like gnarly all together. And I think that happens with things like burnout, PTSD, depression, exhaustion, overwork. It's like, well, where does one thing end and the next thing begin? And also because bioindividuality, first of all, every human has a different setup, right? And then a different psychology, and then a different set of experiences. So it can take different ways of addressing the different facets of trouble or problem or dilemma, right? That you're dealing with. So if you feel like this might be PTSD, then maybe your right next step in your recovery process is to talk to a therapist who can walk you through some uh, PTSD related things, and then that might help a little bit. So the keys that I've seen and I brought together into my framework include wellness, communication, and empowerment. And because they're all kind of parts of the puzzle, if you just look at one, it's like the other parts might not get addressed, and then you fall out, right? You can be in an upward spiral of growth and development, or you can be a downward spiral of feeling kind of worse, and then a decline in your health and your psychology, your mood, and so on. And the important thing is to seek the practitioners and the help and the advice and the coaching and the books and the expertise that you feel drawn to out of whatever is feeling dissonant in your personal experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense to me. Absolutely. There were two things that I wanted to come back to with what you said. Productivity. So you suggest everyone kind of keep their productivity at 80%. And I agree. When you said it though, I like cringed a little. And then I asked myself, excuse me, why did you do that? Why'd you cringe? And it really is that I feel like there's a lot of conditioning that if you're not at 100% of your capacity, then you are not being productive. Which is, it feels weird saying that out loud, but I do really feel like that is something that we have been conditioned to think. And I'm reading a book right now called Slow Productivity by Cal Newport, and he is talking a lot about how productivity for knowledge workers, which most people on LinkedIn fall into that category. It's hard to define. So I like the 80% number. You're right. It gives room for things to go to 100% in a given day. But even me sitting here with all the things I believe, it made me lock up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really the water that we're swimming in, right?
Yeah.
Is the expectation that you consistently do 100% of what you can do all the time and you show up. But it's like, yes, and selecting and deciding and choosing to work at a pace that's more 80%-ish is going to give you better results over time. They say that the 80% of our results are based on 20% of what we do. But if we're churning, right? If we're what's the word that people use a lot when they're doing a lot, right? They're just going and going and going. The hustle culture, right?
Hustle culture, yes.
Hustle culture. If they're constantly and consistently hustling, churning, going, they might not have that good idea of a way that they could have done it better, saved a ton of time, saved a ton of money, and made life better, right? Like it doesn't leave that sort of space for insight, intuition, and improvement.
Yep. I agree. And that's what really the IRL event, which we'll talk about it again in a second as we wrap up, but that was really one of my driving purposes for the Visionaries Table IRL event, was this insight that people work in their business, but sometimes you need to take a step back, work on your business. That's how you find clarity, is having that space to think, which sounds so counterintuitive, but yes, like you need space to think. And whether that's sitting around meditating or just sitting around and looking outside the window or, working out, an art class, cooking, it really is in these what feel like unrelated moments that clarity hits. I wrote another note here when you were encouraging people to rest. Yes, rest is productive. You're being productive when you're resting. So +1 to that.
Yes.
All right. So we are coming down to the last 5-ish minutes, which is so sad. This went so quickly and was a lot of fun. If you're still with us, let us know. Put some statements in the comments. What has resonated with you so far to this point? If you have any questions, again, ask them. And whether you're listening live or on replay, Marna and I want to hear from you. So please connect with us, tag us, leave comments.
Yeah. One of my favorite questions is, what'd you learn? What'd you love? And what are you going to do?
Oh, I like that. I'm going to use that going forward. What did you learn? What did you love? What are you going to do? I like that. If you're with us, let us know. What did you learn? What did you love? What are you going to do moving forward? So to wrap this up, as any of the final comments are coming in, this has been great, Marna. Like, truly. I'm not even sure what I was expecting, but this has just been phenomenal. Are there any final thoughts that you want to leave founders, community builders, employees with today? And please, please, please tell people where they can find you and how they can work with you.
Final thoughts. I think big picture wise, we are entrenched in a context of kind of extractionist culture, right? There's this legacy of, the way we get more or make more is by like getting as much as possible and using up resources and people and ourselves. And, how we advance is by literally depleting ourselves. Like, I've got to, like a superhero, I'm going to put my life force into this thing and I'm going to be decrepit and there's nothing going to be left, but this thing will be brilliant. And it's just the wrong way to go about things. It doesn't have to be that way. I really choose to approach what's possible with more of a regenerative lens, right? How do I build systems that nourish myself, nourish what I'm creating, and create this sort of upward spiral of possibility where we're uplifting each other, where there's I use the word regenerative a lot, where there's more regenerative systems, where there's more possibility and more life force and more win-wins that become possible the more we amplify that possibility. So I want to just offer that as a map, right? Like, are the choices that I'm making in my life helping move upward in a sustainable fashion? I talk a lot about sustainable success. Am I doing that, or am I kind of in the framework of a cost and a pay? And like, I'm not saying never overextend. I'm saying don't be overextending all the time and expect it to go well.
Yeah.
I think asking for support can be really important. And so if you're aware of places where you've maybe got some blind spots, ask for support. Reach out to, myself. I'm available as a coach and also as a workshop trainer. It was something I've been delving into more, is working as a fractional chief wellness officer. So if your company is not yet at a stage where you're able to hire or bring in a chief wellness officer for 100% of the time, that doesn't stop us from working together. I'm happy to come in and help you up level your wellness conversation for your context, for yourself as a founder or collaborator, as well as for your team. And there's lots of individual ways that we can make that look. My website is www.marnaschwartz.com. We can put it in the comments at some point. Also, I have available there a guidebook, a free guide where'd your motivation go? Because that can also be one of the first signs of burnout. It's just, I don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah.
So it was written with women leaders in tech in mind, but it's pertinent to everybody. So you can download that for free also at my website. And just send me a message on LinkedIn or here. Be like, hey, I saw your talk. I'm interested in your take on X, Y, and Z, whatever you're dealing with. And what would it be like to work together? And we can have a discovery conversation. We'll have a virtual tea together and just talk about what's going on and explore whether I can support you and or your team. How's that?
Amazing. Amazing. Well, again, thank you, Marna. Thank you, everyone who tuned in live. Thank you if you're tuning in on replay. I always am so flattered when people spend their time on things that I've either created or co-created with people, because you had tons of other options about where to be and where to spend your time. And I think it's always so flattering when you give me your time. So thank you all so much for being here. And if today's conversation resonated, know that this is just the beginning. As I mentioned in the beginning of our time today, I would love to extend an invitation to everyone watching this to join us for the Visionaries Table, which is the IRL version of Visionary Chats. The workshop is going to be on founder burnout prevention. Marna will be with us IRL too. That is Thursday, May 15th at Fabric in Tribeca. I will include the Luma RSVP page after this for everyone to RSVP. If you're local, we would love to see you. It's intimate, it's hands-on, light breakfast, coffee, talking to people, which founders always sometimes say that they feel very isolated depending on where they are in the process. And so this brings you out of that isolation. Again, thank you all for joining Visionary Chats, and I can't wait to see you all in person. Thank you so much, Marna.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Ashley. This has been wonderful. And thanks. It's been great to be here with everybody. I look forward to seeing you on LinkedIn and in real life in Tribeca in May. Yay!
Awesome. Okay, well, have a great week. Bye.